And in the world of cryptocurrency, why do you think that the job tenure is so short?
Yeah, tenure in crypto being really low. I did a little bit of research on this using some data sets that I pulled, and what I found is that it seems like the average tenure for VPs in crypto is about 10 months, which intuitively lines up with my experience. I don't have the data set on what it is for the industry as a whole, but I'd be surprised if it was much over a year. I really would. And there's an element of that is just the startup roller coaster that is crypto. How many people join teams and then get laid off 6 months later when the bear market hits and the token's lost 90% of its value, so they have to make some of it is just unavoidable with the environment, but a lot of it is more than that. I think a major factor is this goes for information work in general, but especially in crypto. So many of the things that we're doing are things that nobody's done before. If you were to hire somebody 20 years ago, let's take just a profession that I happen to know through personal experience. If you learned to recruit in 1970 and you retired in 1990, okay, that's not a long career, but just roll with me here. You could learn it once. You could do the same thing for 20 years and be successful that entire time. Not much fundamentally would change. In the last 5 years, how much has work changed? How much has things changed in crypto? And one of the things that's really difficult to assess is what is this person's ability to learn and adapt and succeed in this new environment, which is different than the prior environment, which I think goes to the heart of why people have such poor hiring results now compared to, say, 20 years ago. And with the faster cycle, you don't have years to teach someone to be up to speed in an environment in the past where people stay at a company for 10 years and often a lot longer than that. It doesn't matter if it takes a year to train that person or for them to become good, because you've got another 9 years to get an ROI. You need people to be productive pretty much straight away, or it's not going to work in our environment, and that's hard to assess for. So people get it wrong a lot.
I'm gonna interrupt your thought process there to ask you what are some of the consequences for founding teams that have a really high staff churn?
This high turnover of within a team, it's a really insidious problem that people don't actually realize the full ramifications of often until it's too late. Think about you as a founder, you've just raised your $5 million seed round. What have you got to do before you get to your Series A? Well, in 2021, maybe you'd say you make some noise and bring out some cool PR, and then people will come and throw money at you again. I'm being a little facetious, but it definitely doesn't work like that now. I'd be really surprised if the VC landscape ever becomes as buoyant and investment happy as it was a few years ago. So it means by the time you run out of you've used your seed funding, you need to show some traction. You need to have tangible things accomplished. You're not going to get it. You're not just getting an endless money tap. You need to either be self-sufficient, or you need to have made some pretty compelling progress that's going to get you to Series A. Now, every time you hire someone that isn't going to work out or is moderately productive, think of all the waste. I mean, you've got the direct waste. Let's say you hire someone who's there for 8 months. So it's probably going to take them 2 to 3 months to get up to speed. I would argue that in most roles, someone doesn't reach full productivity, and it's not to say they're not useful before then, but after 1 year and they're really embedded in, then they become superpower, and they build up all this institutional knowledge with them along the way of what they've been building, and then they become more and more useful for the next couple of years after that. You never get that virtuous cycle flywheel kicking in if people are leaving 1 year after another. So there's that very intangible but very significant cost. Then you've got the direct costs of, naturally, you have to pay recruiter fees or however else you're hiring somebody. You have the disruption of the team every time the team dynamic is changed. It's actually quite staggering. But if you take the time to get it right up front, and then imagine you build this dream team of, say, 5 or 6 people, which is probably all you need for most projects in the beginning, and they take you all the way through the Series A, and you're not constantly having to be put. As a founder, ideally you want to be up above, working on the vision, not in the weeds. And the better and more self-sufficient your team is, the more you're able to do that. Whereas there's constantly people you have to keep pulling your attention back down to, okay, who are we going to replace them with? How do I get them up to speed? How do I make sure this is all working? It's very insidious. It's quite hard to quantify. But what I've seen is where teams really nail this from the beginning, and they get that team composition and hiring right, and those people stay there for the long term and they're fully productive, magic happens.
And what can founders do to enhance their employee retention? What are some of the practical things that they can do?
A lot of getting retention right happens before you even hire the person. I would argue maybe even the biggest lever in that is it's really looking at what is this person's intrinsic motivation? What do they really want? And can we actually offer it to them? The surprising thing is most people don't actually know the answer to that question before they hire someone. And I'll tell you what happens. Imagine you put a job out there, or someone applies to the job, or you give it to a recruiter, and the recruiter goes and pitches someone the job, and they say they're interested, and then they come for an interview with you. They're interested in the job. Do you know why they're interested in the job? Could it be they just need a job? Any job, as long as it ticks some boxes? Or, there's so much opportunity in crypto. And anyone who's any good is going to get hit up multiple times a day when the market's hot. They could walk into so many countless different roles. What's going to keep them with you? And what's going to keep them with you is if the role and the team and the vision is a really, really strong alignment with what they want. And how I see this as a bridge. When we talk to a candidate for the first time, we don't pitch them a job. We don't talk about a specific role at all. We have a conversation about their vision in life, their goals, why that's important to them. We talk about what's wrong in their current situation that stops them from being able to achieve their goals. And if there is nothing, then we shouldn't recruit them because, if there's no compelling reason for them to leave, there's no compelling reason they're going to stay with you either. But what we want to figure out is, before we talk to them about anything, is your team and role a bridge to take them from where they are now, a state of dissatisfaction, from ultimately where they want to be. And the more exact and precise that fit is, the more likely you are to hold on to them for the long term. Because, hey, if someone's really bought into your mission and values and they really love everything about their work, are they going to listen when someone like me comes knocking? No, probably not. But if they're just taking the job because they need a job and it pays well, you can be sure they're taking those calls, and sooner or later, you're going to lose them to someone who does offer them that vision. So there are other things, of course, to do with retention, but that's the big contrarian insight that I think is actually really important and most people completely miss.
And I'm sure that's super evident when it's in a bull versus a bear market. I mean, when there's no jobs around and people are desperate and scrappy, they're just going to take any job.
Yeah, exactly. In a bear market, people can't afford to be as fussy with the roles that they take, and also they're less likely to leave because there's less opportunity out there, which is why you see every time the market cycle comes back, suddenly you get a ton of people moving because they've been wanting to move for ages, but they didn't have the opportunity, and now they do. And I think a big part of being successful, both in terms of a career in crypto, but also running a company in crypto, is about being able to smartly manage these crazy cycles and not falling victim to them.